Good morning guys, Mike Forster here, and today I want to talk a little bit about anxiety. We're going to look at what anxiety is, we're going to look at different types of anxiety, and we're also going to look at some ways you can actually help manage anxiety. So to kick us off, what actually is anxiety? Well, we all have anxiety. It's something that is inherent to us. It's a natural phenomena. It's part of our brains and who we are. It's our fight-flight response. However, in the context we are talking about anxiety here, is when that anxiousness, those feelings, become too much for you to handle and they start controlling your life, and that's when it becomes an issue. So let's start flicking through these slides and we'll see what anxiety is. So as we just discussed there, it's a natural bodily reaction to what your mind or brain perceives as a threat. At its basic level, it is linked to your fight, flight and freeze response, and anxiety, or too much of it, can cause physical or psychological reactions in your body, such as sweating too much, breathing fast. It also varies in severity from an uneasy feeling, which is quite normal, for example butterflies in your stomach, through to a terrifying panic attack, which is obviously an abnormal situation, and that's when anxiety has got out of control. Anxiety is linked to fear. For example, if you have a fear of heights, or I don't know, a fear of spiders, and you're at the top of the Eiffel Tower with your fear of heights, you're going to feel pretty anxious. If you see a spider running across the floor, you're going to feel pretty anxious if you're afraid of spiders. So there's definitely a link to fear there with anxiety. What makes you feel anxious? Now this is when I want to throw it out to you guys watching this video. Drop a comment below about what makes you feel anxious, because personally, I don't mind heights so much. I actually have social anxiety, as you'll know if you watch some of these videos. So what makes me feel anxious is being in a place with a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people. So yeah, that makes me feel anxious. What makes you feel anxious? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it a little bit. What do you think that is? That's a fairly common anxiety, and we also see there one of the symptoms of anxiety. We see a guy who's public speaking, and a lot of people don't like public speaking, and he's also sweating quite a lot, which is a symptom of the anxiety he's got at that moment in time. We have fear of flying, which does cause a lot of anxiety and causes many people to either not fly at all or to take alternate routes to countries instead. That involve obviously boats, ships, cars, etc. And we've got two more here. We've got the fear of crowds that I've alluded to myself, and we've got the fear of heights. That's not the Eiffel Tower, but it's still pretty high up. So yeah, they're all examples of things that people get anxious about and fearful of. So again, drop a comment below. What makes you anxious? So what makes an anxiety disorder? Well, we've also already talked about anxiety is a normal bodily function. We've all got it. So what severity does it need to get to before it becomes a disorder? Well, severe anxiety or excessive worry over a long period of time, and also that anxiety must impact upon your day-to-day home or working life. So if you find that your anxiousness has lasted for a long time on a constant basis, and it's also stopping you doing things you want to do either at home or at work, then your anxiety may well be out of control and you'd be looking to get professional help at that point. So what are some general symptoms of anxiety? Right, we've got physical symptoms such as chest pain, rapid heartbeat, flushing, shortness of breath, dizziness, headaches, sweating, dry mouth, stomach churning. The amount of times you go to the toilet is actually anxiety, or can be linked to anxiety. Obviously, there's other things that could cause that. Psychological symptoms of anxiety, so excessive, unrealistic fear or worry, your mind going blank in certain situations, decreased concentration and memory. A lot of people don't realise that increased anxiety can decrease your memory and your ability to concentrate. Indecision, one that I suffer with quite regularly when I'm severely anxious, is indecision. Normally I trust my decisions, I'm quite a logical person, I work everything out before I make a decision, but if I'm in the middle of an anxious episode, then I won't trust my workings out, even though they are the same as they've always been. That's just what anxiety does, to me anyway. There's confusion, tiredness and unwanted repetitive thoughts. There's behavioural symptoms as well, such as avoidance of certain situations. For example, social anxiety. There are times where I've avoided going out to see my friends because although I want to see them, I've just got a feeling inside that something's going to go wrong, or that what if I feel really uncomfortable and I don't know where to put myself and I don't know where to stand and I don't know who to talk to because everybody's talking, and all those kind of worries. There's repetitive compulsive behaviour, seeking constant reassurance, distress in social situations as I've just discussed, and increased panic to escape discomforting situations. All of those can be symptoms of anxiety. So if you yourself or anyone you know has displayed any of those symptoms, and maybe they haven't said anything, or maybe you felt like they're retreating a little bit and you're not seeing them as much as you used to, maybe just ask them if they're okay. But the key thing, and it's down there at the bottom, anxiety is treatable. I've had treatment for it. I know many people who have, and who have recovered, or at least are on the way to recovery. There's many ways to manage anxiety, so just be assured that it is treatable. So what are the different types of anxiety disorders? There's generalized anxiety disorder, known as GAD. The main symptom is overwhelming worry, usually over things that could go wrong in terms of money, health, family, work, anything really, not just those categories, but anything that could go wrong. There's also panic disorder, so someone diagnosed with this will have panic attacks and regularly worry about a panic attack occurring, and that therefore increases the likelihood of another panic attack. It's almost like you're in a cycle there. And a panic attack, for those of you who don't know, is a sudden feeling of apprehension and intense fear. I did experience one a couple of years ago now. Thankfully, it was a lone occurrence. I didn't have panic disorder, but the panic attack itself was incredibly scary. It's probably the scariest thing I've been through in my life. I physically shook. I couldn't stop myself from shaking. My heart was going, 100 miles an hour, it felt like. I actually thought I was having a heart attack. But, luckily, it was just a one-off panic attack and I'm okay now. But, yeah, it's a very distressing situation to be in. We also have phobias. A person suffering from a phobia will avoid or restrict activities because of specific fear. This fear will be persistent, excessive and unreasonable. So phobias, spiders again, flying, heights, public speaking, all that kind of stuff. Again, if any of you out there feel like you have a phobia, drop it in the comments below. I'd really love to hear from people about this, because Anxiety is something we all have, whether we want it or not. It's a part of you. It's at different levels with us all. So yeah, love to get your contribution. We also have acute stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. Now it's likely that you've heard of PTSD, possibly less likely ESD. They can both develop after a particularly traumatic or distressing experience. In ESD, the symptoms will begin to fade roughly around a month after the experience. But post-traumatic stress disorder can take years to actually appear after the experience that it is triggered by. So again, they're very distressing anxiety issues. And just to finish off, ASD, PTSD can be brought on by being involved in or witnessing war, floods, hurricanes, serious injury, death in the family, anything that is really stressful to your psychological well-being, really. And we have obsessive compulsive disorder, get me teeth in. And again, this may be one you've heard of before. It is obsessional thoughts, commonly about fear of contamination or harm, and compulsive behaviours accompanying the anxiety. These are the thoughts the person cannot control. They are unwanted, inappropriate, and create severe anxiety. Again, it's quite a well-known anxiety disorder, this one, but essentially somebody who suffers with OCD can't control what their brain is thinking, and those thoughts give them anxiety. And again, it's trying to break that circle, really, in terms of treatment. So, just talking about the circle, we're going to have a quick look at the cycle of negative thinking. So, negative thoughts can lead to negative emotions, which can lead to either involuntary reactions should you go ahead with what you were going to do, or avoidance behaviour should you avoid what you were going to do. But then that avoidance behaviour feeds back into more negative thoughts, negative emotions, then you actually go and do what you were going to do, and you may get an involuntary reaction such as panic attacks, blushing, sweating, all the stuff we were talking about earlier in terms of heart beating faster, all that kind of stuff, and then that comes back around into negative thoughts. So essentially, at its basic level, anxiety is that cycle, and it's about trying to break that cycle in order to make a recovery, or at least find techniques to manage the way you feel when you're in the middle of that cycle. How does anxiety affect an individual? Mentally and emotionally, life can look very different for somebody with anxiety. Their choices are restricted and they lose confidence. What used to be a simple task becomes at best uncomfortable for them, and at worst absolutely impossible. This can lead to increased frustration for the person in question, a lack of motivation, and memory and concentration issues. So, how else does anxiety affect an individual? Well, it can affect an individual physically. It can cause, involuntary shaking, difficulty breathing, and pains in your chest, which are the symptoms of the panic attack that I had a couple of years ago. Anxiety can also lead to longer-term physical issues such as IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and also stomach cramps, which are incredibly painful, and unfortunately I've had personal experience of. Short-term anxiety can create dry mouth, sweating, and a change to the speed of your breathing, a little bit like we saw with the guy who was trying to public speak earlier and he was sweating. So really, how do we treat anxiety disorders? Because we all have anxiety. It's just we all have anxiety at different levels. So if our anxiety was to get out of control, how do we treat it? Well, one treatment for anxiety is relaxation, switching off, basically. Local charities and voluntary organisations sometimes offer training in relaxation for individuals with anxiety. It involves instruction on how to breathe correctly, how to relax your muscles, and also how to clear your mind. There are many ways to relax. You can read or listen to. I love audiobooks, so I tend to listen. Or go for a massage, do some meditation, go for a long walk. It depends on what type of person you are, really. The key is to switch off and to get out of here and onto a focus externally other than your mind. Talking therapies are a fantastic way to treat anxiety disorders. They're designed to help individuals understand what causes their anxiety and gives them the tools to be able to stop the cycle of negative thinking. And that's what we looked at a little bit earlier, the cycle of negative thinking. Just to give you a little bit extra information, I've actually got it here beside me. I didn't intend to put this in the video, but this is what I did with my counsellor once, and it's essentially a thought bubble about what thoughts I was having, what safety behaviours I was undertaking, and what anxiety symptoms I had. For example, my thoughts were racing, I had dry mouth, I was going to the toilet a lot more often. You know, so it really does work. Counselling really does help with anxiety. We have medication. Now, antidepressants, as with depression, do work well in general for anxiety. However, there are potential side effects including drowsiness, constipation and nausea. See your GP when it comes to medication. I have taken medication for anxiety before and I haven't had any of those side effects, but obviously they are potentially there, and if you read the instructions in the medication it will inform you of that. But medication can help alongside talking therapies and other stuff. Your diet can help. It is accepted that too much caffeine can increase feelings of anxiety. Other examples include sugar. Too much or too little can leave you feeling sluggish or tired. So try as best you can to eat a balanced diet. I know that's easier said than done. And what I've found personally is interact with people. You know how I said for relaxation it's about getting yourself out of here and onto an external focus. Interaction is much the same. It's the same principle. In a safe, comfortable environment where you are comfortable, spend some time with your friends, because you'll find that listening to someone else talk about their life brings you out of your life and your mind into theirs, and that actually helps your mind calm down and just releases a bit of that stress and anxiety that you're hanging on to. So yeah, that brings to an end this little discussion on anxiety. As always, if any of you out there feel like you may be struggling with anxiety or any other mental illness, please seek professional help, speak to your GP, self-refer yourself for a talking therapy via the NHS website. You know, there's tons of support out there. Go on one of these websites, you know, contact one of these telephone numbers. There's support out there and you can get better if you access that support. So as always guys, thank you for watching this. I hope it's been useful. If you want to drop a comment, you know, tell me what you're anxious about, any other thoughts on the video, please go ahead and do that. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, wishing you good health and well-being, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.